Well, good morning. Nice to be back here with you. If we were sitting in the same room together, I would probably start by just being quiet together for a little while and feeling what it feels like to be in the same space. So even though we are not in the same room, I think I'd like to do that this morning. So let's just sit quietly for a minute or so. So good morning again. I hope you're finding ways to keep well, to keep your mind and your body healthy, at ease, and engaged during this time. A number of years ago, I spent a little over 2 years training as a monastic in the Buddhist tradition, Western branch of the Ajahn Chah Thai forest lineage. And right at the very end of my time, just about a week before leaving the monastery where I was staying in Ontario, in Canada, I woke up one morning. I think we got up about 5, a little before 5. I woke up probably half an hour before I usually do, with a very peculiar sensation in, I think it was my left lower leg. And I'd only felt that sensation once before in my life, when I had a tick embedded in my back. And as soon as I kind of came to consciousness and recognized what the sensation was, I went into high alert. I leapt out of bed, turned on the light. It had a little solar panel attached to the kuti, to the cabin, and turned on the light, lifted up my long johns. It was quite cold. It was November in Canada. And sure enough, there was a very tiny little deer tick embedded in my leg. And thus began a journey of about 3 years of dealing with all kinds of complications from tick-borne illness. And at first we waited. I had some other conditions, so it was not great for me to take lots of antibiotics. So we said, well, let's get the tick tested and see what happens, see if symptoms arise. I didn't get the rash, but within a week I started getting headaches. And within 2 weeks, started feeling body aches and pains. And so we did some antibiotics, and a few weeks started to stretch into months, and which then turned into years. I was very fortunate to have had over 15 years of mindfulness and meditation practice, Dharma contemplation under my belt, so to speak. I don't know how I could have gotten through it without that. One can resist, can get through a hard time kind of gritting your teeth and holding your breath for a little while, or hoping. But when something goes on for weeks and weeks into months, you need a different quality to make it through. The heart needs to surrender. And what we're all living through right now is, I think, akin to that. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So this week and next week, I want to talk about two very powerful qualities on the path to awakening that support each other, which we might not necessarily always pair together, and which confer a certain strength in our lives and in our contemplative practice. So this week I want to talk about patience, building on the meditation we did yesterday. And next week I want to talk about a companion quality of resolve, a kind of determination. The pace of our lives these days, well, perhaps not these days, but before the shelter in place, the kind of ordinary pace of busyness and distraction masks the importance of patience and resolve, because we are so occupied, most of us, much of the time. And the shelter in place that many of us are living with right now reveals, I think, the importance of these qualities in our own day-to-day, very personal, direct life much more clearly. So the first point I want to make, just to kind of set up this conversation here, is that contemplative practice rests upon a kind of counterintuitive pivot. The Buddha called it going against the stream. In fact, there's a legend that the night before he was awakened, he had several dreams that kind of foreshadowed his awakening. And one of the dreams, someone offered him alms food in a golden bowl and told him to keep the bowl. And after he finished eating, he said, I don't have any use for this bowl. And they said, please keep it. You know, it would be insulting to me and to my family if you didn't keep it as an offering. So he went to the river to bathe and had the bowl. And afterwards, he took the bowl and he said, okay, if I'm going to become awakened, may this bowl float upstream. And he put the bowl in the water, and as the story goes, the bowl floated upstream. This is the dream that he had. So there's this sense of going against the current. Which current? Well, the first and foremost, the current of our society, and at a deeper level, the currents of our own mind. So the ordinary orientation in life is to seek satisfaction and fulfillment, which is universal, human, and healthy, the longing for fulfillment and satisfaction. But the ordinary orientation is to seek that satisfaction through getting something, through acquisition, acquiring pleasant experiences, pleasant sensations, status, wealth, even knowledge. And so the default the default logic of the ordinary orientation is that my happiness will come from what I experience. And so we look to the content of our lives for not only our happiness and fulfillment, but our sense of self-worth. On the contemplative path, there's this pivot that goes against the stream, where we honor the deep longing for fulfillment. That's our birthright as human beings. But instead of seeking that fulfillment through gaining something, through getting or having something, through acquiring, whether it's material possessions, experience, or status, knowledge, instead we recognize that fulfillment comes through cultivating a different relationship to life. That how we experience things becomes more important than what we experience, than the content of our life. And so on the contemplative path, in order to make this shift of how am I relating to the world, to my own mind and body, we strengthen certain qualities as we move towards the goal and the aim of a very kind of deep and profound letting go inside. So for the contemplative, the way we pay attention and engage with life is more important than what happens. And our happiness, our fulfillment, our sense of satisfaction are connected to the qualities we bring to the moment, how we are paying attention, how we are living. Sometimes the Dharma, the teachings that the Buddha left, are talked about as a way of life. So we are studying and learning how to live, how to be skillful in the way that we live, rather than trying to control the content of our experience. So skill in living, the word that the Buddha used for meditation is bhavana. Bhavana literally means cultivation. So it's like growing a garden. And if you've ever done any farming or gardening, or even if you have house plants, you know it takes time, it takes patience and tending, and one has to trust in the process. It's an organic unfolding. You can't rush it. You don't see results right away. You just keep putting in the conditions. And then the fruits emerge. So this pivot, this movement from getting what I want, my happiness coming from what I experience, to how am I living, what is my relationship to life, and beginning to strengthen certain qualities in that relationship. What qualities of mind and heart do I bring to bear on what's happening? So within that range of qualities that we can cultivate, mindfulness tends to get all the press, right? So, and for good reason. Mindfulness is talked about as one of the leaders. It's kind of the if you've ever seen geese flying in the sky, you know that they fly in a formation, and there's one at the front, and they break the wind for each other. So mindfulness is kind of like that one that's right out front there, leading the way, and then the other qualities come along to support it. But truly, there's no kind of one thing on the path. The elegance and the beauty of the Buddha's teachings is that it's a way of understanding that's looking at systems, actually, that's looking at relationships, and saying that in order to free ourselves internally from the prison of our own fears and anxieties and neuroses, as well as relationally and socially, we need a whole bunch of different factors working together, a constellation of conditions that create the circumstances for the mind to open, for the heart to open. And so the different qualities that we can cultivate, there are different lists. There's kind of pedagogical structure in the Buddha's teachings. One is the 7 factors of awakening. Some of you are familiar with those. Another collection of these qualities is called the 10 paramis, or in Sanskrit, the paramitas. And these are 10 qualities that the Buddha was said to have perfected in his own cultivation of the path. Qualities like generosity, ethical living, simplicity, energy, wisdom, truthfulness, patience, determination, kindness, equanimity. So I want to talk about 2 of these, patience and determination. And these qualities, this list of 10, is a very practical way of bringing our contemplation and spirituality into our life, because it focuses on how are we living, what are we cultivating, how do we handle difficulties when they arise, what resources do we have inside. So the way the mind works, that the Buddha understood 2,600 years ago, and which we have now kind of proven today with modern neuroscience, is that it learns in part through repetition. That repeated behavior strengthens certain pathways in the mind. These neural networks is called Hebbian neuroplasticity, neurons that fire together, wire together. The more you do anything, the easier it becomes to do that thing, whether it's playing a violin or blowing up and getting angry at someone. Right? We reinforce a certain pattern. And so the cultivation, this patient, steady kind of gardening of the heart, of the mind, in part is one of sowing the seeds of healthy qualities so that those become stronger and more available and reliable. So patience, this one quality of patience, is a key energy on the path. When we cultivate patience, particularly together with resolve, it gives tremendous strength and power to the mind. The two work together to create a kind of unshakable, steady basis for our life. When I was a kid, I had the good fortune and the privilege of spending time outdoors, doing some camping. And one of the things that I learned at one point is how to make fire without matches. And so to do that, you get a very hard stick and then a softer stick, and you have a little hole in the harder stick at the base, and then you have a bow with a string in it that's twisted around the post. And you run the bow back and forth, and that spins the stick that's upright, touching the base stick. And then you keep spinning that, and it creates friction where the two sticks are rubbing. And then you have this like very light, fluffy, I forget what it's called, but it's like the inside of the bark of a tree, or something that's very soft and feathery that will light very easily. So to do this, to make fire, it takes a while. You've got to run that bow with the stick back and forth for a good while. Your arm starts to hurt doing it. It takes patience, but it also takes resolve. Without the resolve to stay with it, you don't get fire. But without the patience, that steady, open, gentle quality of just keep going, you also don't get it. So the two work together. There's this kind of softness and gentleness of patience that allows things to be, and then this firm steadiness of resolve that doesn't give up. So today I want to focus on the quality of patience and talk a little bit more about what this quality is and its relevance for our practice and our life. So ordinarily, when I know for myself, before I started meditating, when we think of patience, we might think of kind of gritting our teeth and bearing something. You know, the mind is tense, it's contracted, and it's reaching or longing for the end of something, right? We're kind of just waiting for that irritation or that unpleasant sound or sensation or situation, whatever it is, to end. So this is not patience. This is a quote from Sharon Salzberg. She writes, "Patience doesn't mean making a pact with the devil of denial, ignoring our emotions and aspirations. It means wholeheartedly engaging in the process that's unfolding, rather than ripping open a budding flower or demanding a caterpillar hurry up and get that chrysalis stage over with." So she's juxtaposing there, right, this sense of our habitual way of relating to things that take longer than we want, and the true quality of patience, which is a very connected and engaged process that allows things to take their time. So patience at its core is a relaxation of the heart and the mind. There's a relinquishing of resistance. And together with that, a quality of softness, a quality of acceptance, almost a kind of surrender that allows the mind and the heart to open with a kind of spaciousness to the truth of what is. And in that softness, in that surrender and opening, there's a kind of infinite strength that we can bear with anything. It's the strength of water that is so soft, so gentle, holds no form, yet over centuries can wear away the hardest stone. So patience confers that quality of infinite strength to the heart. The strength of nonviolent campaigns for social change to wear down the resistance of injustice and oppression has at its core this combination of patience and resolve. So in the Buddhist tradition, the word for patience is khanti, translated as patience, sometimes endurance, that sense of the marathon, that ability to endure, to go on, forbearance, bearing with things, and sometimes it's even, depending on the context, can mean forgiveness, which I find so fascinating, and which really connects with me in my own experience. That there's this quality of forgiveness to patience, right? When things aren't going the way we want them and there's that resistance inside, that moment of letting go, of acceptance, there's a forgiveness. It's like we're forgiving life for letting us down. Without that forgiveness, how can we be patient? The root of the word khanti is kam, which is also very interesting. It means patient, but it can also mean earth. And again, for me, this conveys something profound about what is meant by patience. That at the core, there's this very grounded, vast, immense quality to it, like the earth. And in one text where the Buddha is talking about our capacity for patience and forbearance, particularly in the face of insults and harsh speech, one of the instructions he gives is to make your mind like the earth, vast, immense, and deep, so that even when someone comes and digs at you, you're unmoved, just like someone with a shovel can't dig all of the earth and remove it from the earth. Another image that I like to use, which I think I maybe brought into the meditation yesterday, is the shore around a lake. Patience is like the edge around a great lake, and it has that. It's touching, it's contacting what's happening, embracing it, holding it, but very, very wide, very open. There's a line from the Dhammapada, one of the, what we think to be one of the more ancient texts, one of the older texts in the Buddhist tradition. It's a collection of short sayings that says, Khanti paramang tapo titika. So khanti, patience, paramang, the perfection of patience, tapo titika. So tapo is a form of tapas, which means austerity. So the phrase, the line means patience is the supreme austerity, or patience is the highest perfection. And there's a play on words there. So in ancient India, there are even, in Indian society and culture, it's a very deeply spiritual culture, and there's a long-standing tradition of millennia of people seeking enlightenment in all different ways, all kinds of different paths and spiritual seekers called sadhus. It's embedded into the society and the way of life. There's different stages of life, and the final stage is the stage of seeking spiritual awakening. And there are all kinds of ascetic practices that people will engage in and have for millennia, of standing on one leg, lying on a bed of nails, wearing a hair shirt, all of these. So the Buddha is playing on this aspect of the culture that really values in the pursuit of awakening asceticism and austerity. And the Buddha is saying the highest austerity, the highest kind of what's the other word I was just using? Austerity, or it's funny, it's totally gone now. But the highest kind of renunciation is patience. Sayadaw U Pandita is a Burmese teacher who had a huge influence on the Western insight meditation movement. He said once, patience paves the road to freedom. Why is this? Why is patience given such a high place? Why is it the supreme austerity, the supreme ascetic practice? That was the other word I was looking for. Why does patience pave the road to freedom? When we're patient, it gives us the space to allow the mind to unfold, to allow that garden to grow. It takes patience for this practice to unfold. It's not a linear process. It's not something that we push a button and it happens. So the patience provides the conditions, one of the primary conditions for everything else to ripen on the path. Within the Dharma, there are three kinds of patience that are sometimes talked about. I remember the first time I heard this, it really just kind of blew my mind. The first is the patience to bear with that which is difficult. And this is a whole training in contemplative practice. It's called training in, for those who have studied some, training in dukkha vedana. Vedana means feeling or feeling tone. It's the flavor, the agreeableness or disagreeableness of experience. Sometimes it's referred to as a fancy term, a hedonic tone. It just means if it feels good or not. Dukkha vedana, dukkha means suffering, it means pain. So training in dukkha vedana, the patience to bear with that which is difficult. Who would want to do that? Well, is there anything difficult in your life? Anything uncomfortable? Anyone, it's part of life. We all experience unpleasant things, unpleasant sensations, unpleasant circumstances, unpleasant people. If we can't bear with that, if we don't have the patience to allow that to move through us, we really end up suffering because we're struggling and fighting and resisting. This is the first kind of patience. The second kind of patience is patience when wronged or insulted by others. And again, just being very real about life. Like, this is part of what it is to be human. People do things that really rub us the wrong way, sometimes intentionally, right? It's heartbreaking if it's a friend or a family member. It's angering or bittering when it's a colleague. It's maddening, enraging when it's a public official and we feel helpless. And yet, this is the truth, is that part of being alive means that we experience insult, injury, being wronged, injustice. Do we have the patience to bear with that? That doesn't mean condoning it. It doesn't mean not acting. It means not reacting. That we're still in the driver's seat because we're not getting pushed around by it. This is the second kind of patience. We never have to worry about what someone else does. We only have to worry about how we respond. The third kind of patience is the deepest. It said, this is the patience to face the profound truth without fear. I just want to let that one sit there. That's for each of us to discover. What is the profound truth? And why does it take patience to face it without fear? So how does this apply? How does this apply to our formal meditation practice? How does it apply to our day-to-day, right? When we're not sort of sitting, following the breath, or doing meditation exercises. So in this practice of vipassana, of insight meditation, we've talked a little bit about these two parts, that there's the calming and steadying, and then the looking deeply and exploring experience. And patience is an essential quality for both. So with the steadying of the mind, this calming and abiding, where we're just coming back again and again and again to the anchor. If you've ever tried to meditate for more than like 5 minutes, you know it takes tremendous patience to keep coming back over and over and over again. We have a cat, Lexi, who was crying at the door a few minutes ago, and I am in the process of learning how to train her to sit, to come, to be on a leash so we can go outside. Takes a lot of patience to train an animal. It takes a lot of patience to train this animal, to train this mind, to keep coming back with gentleness, with love, with forgiveness. The richer and deeper your quality of patience, the more readily your mind will settle. Because that quality of patience, that wide open shore of the lake, it doesn't get rattled when the mind goes away, when it keeps thinking, when it keeps getting lost. It says, oh, okay, let's come back again. And it's that evenness of patience that starts to coax the mind into, oh, this is nice to just rest here. So patience supports shamatha practice, calming, abiding practice. The next phase of vipassana, or it's not really a phase because the two go hand in hand and work together, but the other kind of aspect or dimension of vipassana practice is insight, is looking deeply, examining our experience, exploring. What is it to be alive? What is this mind and body? What is it to feel afraid, to have regrets, to feel joyful? To really become intimate with these experiences and start to understand their nature. So this investigation and mindfulness of the insight practice requires patience. We take that steadiness and then apply it to look deeply. Well, really looking deeply and observing something takes time. Remember that quote from Georgia O'Keeffe, "No one sees a flower in a way, really. It is so small. And to see takes time. Like to have a friend takes time." So there's that quality of patience in being willing to observe something long enough to understand it. I had a science teacher in 7th grade who taught me something, who taught all of us, I think, something about patience and observation. In the spring of 7th grade, actually it was the winter, it was the end of winter, she gave, there's Lexi, I don't know if you can hear her. She gave us an assignment. She said, I want you to find a tree and watch it bud and produce leaves and draw it, every day, every 2 days. I'm not an artist, a visual artist per se. So to really draw something, right, I had to look at it really closely. And 7th grade, so I was, 12 years old, something like that. I'd lived enough years to know what happens in spring. The trees, they get leaves, the flowers grow, the grass turns green, yada, yada, yada. This is New Jersey where the seasons are quite dramatic, right? I was floored. I chose a sapling, a maple sapling right outside where we lived. And at first it's just a dead branch. And I drew this little branch. And then this very very, very, very tiny brown little bud. And then the bud starts to turn green, and it's getting bigger and it's getting longer. And then I can start to discern it has like these little pointed, sort of like kind of triangular like shields on it. And then it starts to open, and this like iridescent, soft, delicate leaf starts to emerge. It took the patience of coming back day after day and really looking at it, drawing it, to finally be able to see that branch and that leaf. To really see something and understand it takes patience. I remember reading about a conservationist named Cynthia Moss who studied elephants in the savannah in Africa, and she said it took her 20 years of observation before she began to realize how complex they were as creatures. So I'm talking about this science project in 7th grade that probably took, all of 3 or 4 weeks. Can you imagine studying an animal, studying it for 20 years in the field, observing them, writing down every movement, This is the quality of patience that we can bring to our spiritual practice, to observing the unfolding of life right here and now in our own experience. So we need patience to explore. We can't learn anything if we're always trying to get somewhere, always trying to accomplish something. This is from Trungpa Rinpoche, the Tibetan teacher. When we sit, it's always for a purpose. If we're sitting in a car, we're thinking, how long is it going to take me to get to my destination so I can begin to rush? We count the mileage, we note the speed of our car, we watch the odometer, we sit for a purpose. It's a very interesting point that nobody has experienced that we can actually sit on a cushion without any purpose. None whatsoever. It's outrageous. Nobody would actually ever do that. We can't even think about it. It's unthinkable. It's terrible. We would be wasting our time. Now there's the point. Wasting our time. Maybe that's a good one, wasting our time. Give time a rest. Let it be wasted. Create virgin time, uncontaminated time, time that hasn't been hassled by aggression, passion, and speed. Let us create pure time. Sit and create pure time. This is the quality of Kanti, Kanti Parami. The Dhamma, one of the descriptions of the Dhamma is akaliko, which means timeless. The truth, the fruit of awakening, is not found in time. It's not something in the future that we arrive at. If it were, it would be impermanent and end. It's beyond time. It's timeless. It's something that's always available and present. So how are you going to get there? By shooting for it? You're going to go right past it. So we need this quality of patience to observe, explore deeply enough this moment, not something in the future, right here and now, what's happening, for that to open, for the timelessness of the Dhamma to open. And here again, this is that pivot. This is that going against the stream, right? We want to make progress. We want to achieve something. We long to realize the truth, to have a deep fulfillment. And we forget that progress is linear. It's defined by some imagined destination in the future that we move towards. And you can spend your whole life doing that, and you'll never get there. It just keeps receding. This practice is a natural process. It's organic. Bhavana, cultivation, it's something unfolding, like a flower blooming, like a bud in spring, like a caterpillar in a chrysalis turning into a butterfly. A flower doesn't advance. It doesn't make progress. It doesn't move forward in time. It opens. It opens. This is from the poet Rilke. As for me, my internal pace is slow. Mine is the intrinsic slowness of the tree that embraces its growth and its blooming. Trees don't move forward in time. They send down roots. They explore the ground to find nourishment. They open with their branches and reach to the sky. These are the metaphors that can inform our practice. Like Thanissaro Bhikkhu said, good things always take time. The trees with the most solid heartwood are the ones that take the longest to grow. So we do the practice, focusing on what we're doing rather than getting into an internal dialogue about when the results are going to come, what they're going to be like, and how we can speed things up. Many times our efforts to speed things up actually get in the way. So patience, this allowing, this spaciousness. I have to give it time. We don't get peace. We give things peace. We give ourselves peace through patience by allowing ourselves to be with what's happening one moment at a time. So we take this into our daily life too. This is not just for the cushion. So in the day-to-day, the practice of patience goes against the stream. It goes against the current of always getting something done as quickly and efficiently as possible. I have so much to learn from this. This is one of my most challenging practices. I'm Virgo, I'm white, I'm a man. I mean, I've gotten so much conditioning in this life about get it done quickly, be the best, get it done fast. You know, and when I'm not paying attention, I run people over, and it's very painful because I care. I value relationships. I value non-harming, and it's like stepping on a rake sometimes. You get hit in the face. But patience helps us to slow down. What happens when we slow down is we feel the momentum. We feel everything that has been driving us unconsciously for so long. That rush, that momentum to keep pushing forward. And we begin to experience directly the patterning of the mind that keeps reaching into the future, that keeps waiting or wanting or leaning towards something else. It's called bhava tanha, the force of becoming, to move into the future, that keeps our life moving ahead, moving ahead, moving ahead, always waiting for the next thing, never quite being fully here. And what are we rushing towards? Always jumping to the next thing. Where's it going? It's only one place it's going to end up for all of us. So what's the rush? Why are we pushing forward? Why not slow down? So we can take this practice of patience into our day-to-day in very practical ways. Pause. When you finish one task, just, okay, that's done. Let it settle. When this talk is over, in a couple minutes, before you, boom, get up and run on to the next thing, what's it like to take a deep breath? How would it be? How would the quality of your life change if you had more of a sense of ease and spaciousness and patience as you move through your day, as you move through the activities? What would it be like to give your full attention to one task, to one person, to one conversation? What would it be like to allow yourself to do nothing, to waste time, to create pure time, to not always be waiting and reaching for something else? I'd like to end with another quote from Rilke, one of my favorites and one of his more famous. Be patient toward all that is unresolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves like locked rooms and like books that are now written in a very foreign tongue. Do not now seek the answers which cannot be given you because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live along some distant day into the answer. It's from Letters to a Young Poet. Okay, my friends, before closing, I want to thank you for your kind attention. And I also want to say that I'm so happy to be able to offer these teachings freely through the Insight Meditation Society, particularly right now during this time when so many are experiencing financial hardship, unemployment, and all kinds of insecurity due to the crisis. IMS is operated mostly through donations. These teachings are offered freely. And if you're able to contribute, if you would like to support the Insight Meditation Society at any point this month, there's a warm and open invitation to do so. These organizations and institutions that help keep the Dharma flourishing in our society need our support to continue. So it's really an honor and a privilege to be here to share with you. It is a gift. It is freely offered. And if you have the resources and the impulse inside to give, you can go to dharma.org and offer some support to the Insight Meditation Society. All right, so as we end, I invite you to bring this quality of patience into your day. Thanks so much. See you tomorrow for a Q&A.